When you're ready, tell your kids.
Alright. Roha, ready? Ready.
Start broadcast. Start record.
It started.
It started.
Alright.
I did. It started.
Hello everybody. Good evening, y'all. Tonight I would like to tell you a little story. About 2 months ago, when I was just a young orange belt, Roha and I were in the coffee company in Groningen, which is basically a coffee house. We were sitting there, and at some point there was this nice and interesting looking fellow, and we exchanged some glances, and Roha said, "Oh, why don't you go talk to him?" And I was like, but eep, erk, derp, yik. And basically I went on eking and derping and herking until the guy left the door, and the opportunity to talk to some nice person went right out the door. And I felt sad. And I was like, I need to fix this. So in the coming months I worked on getting all the stuff out of the way that prevented me from addressing this guy, just walking up to him and having a nice chat, perhaps exchanging phone numbers so we can meet up later. And then, this day, as I was in the coffee house together with a fellow source, today, I was in the same coffee house with Catherine, and we were having a nice chat, and suddenly I saw the same guy again. I was like, I see an opportunity to fix this. The one time where I bailed out of a nice opportunity. The one time I quit. I fix. So I took a few seconds to scan how to walk up to the guy. I did. I said, "Hi, how are you doing? My name is Martin. Here's my phone number. Nice to meet you. You look like a nice fellow. Bye." And he was like, "Oh, what happened? Oh, that was kind of cool." And his friends were laughing and giggling. And when he left, like 10 minutes later, because I told him, "Well, I'm with my lady friend here, so if you will excuse me." When he left, he was like, "Yeah, nice meeting you, dude." And he smiled, waved, and went away. And it was basically easy as pie, no big deal. And we were all happier for it. So, I'd like to say, whenever life gives you a chance to clean up the mess you made earlier and fix things, make things happier, grab it! Yank onto it, hold on to it, go for it! And with that...
No, that's it.
Yes.
I wish to ask you, Gimli.
Yes.
So what? Who cares? Why talk to strangers? Why talk to strangers?
For one, it opens up nice opportunities for making new friends or just having a nice conversation. You might learn something. It also teaches you a lot about yourself, like this situation earlier where I irked and derped out. Basically showed me a lot of inner pieces that were bugging me and preventing me from having a happier life. And who knows, if he calls me back, I might just have made a friend today. And if not, I made a few people smile and happy.
Alright. What if you see someone and feel drawn to talk to them?
Yes.
What might be the reason that you're drawn to talk to them? We all feel it sometimes, like, I should talk to that person, or that person looks interesting.
Right.
Why? Why does this happen? Repeat the question.
So he asked, so why does this happen? You are drawn to some person, you think, this person looks interesting. But why does this happen? I would say, for one, this person might be able to teach you something talking to this person. Or it might be a sexual interest. And you might also teach them a thing. So, for all parties involved, it can involve a lot of gain. And, well, there's very little to lose. At worst, the person will say, "Well, I don't want to talk to you, go away." Okay. And then you don't have to take it personal, because it's just their own grumpiness or whatever issue talking.
And you're back where you started.
Yes.
If they tell you no, you're the same place you were, you hadn't said.
Well, I would say, at least it shows you that, well, okay, that's the worst thing that can happen, basically. So you build some courage I said, okay, I can do this.
Right. The worst that can happen is nothing.
Yes,
What can happen?
you make an amazing friend, you learn something amazing, you might teach them something that changes their life for the better forever.
Tell me about the guy that last week who was so sad, sitting in the corner by himself when we were at the coffee shop, the one you went and spoke to. He was curled up with a book.
Yes. Yes, last week when we were in the coffee shop, there was this guy sitting in a corner, all up by himself, being very sad, lonely, curled up with a book like this, just reading by himself. And he basically looked a lot like me before I started out. So I went up and talked to him, said, hey, what you studying? And he told me about what he was studying, and I said, so are you happy with it? Well, maybe, I don't know. So we talked to him, and I said, well, it's never too late to change your life, so, and you can even use this study you're using now to help you reach something completely different. The skills you're learning here are always useful, whether you really like them or not. And he talked about how he basically is stuck in his own little community of where he always hangs out with the same people, like I used to do before I started. So in talking to this fellow, I learned for myself how far I have come since I started. Like, hey, I used to be stuck in my own little community, always talking to my own friends, never reaching out and talking to someone else, basically missing a lot of interesting opportunities. And I might have just given him food for thought about, hey, perhaps I can change my life around, perhaps this thing isn't making me happy and I do want to do something else. Alright, and I gave him an elf path card, told him a bit about elf paths. If he comes back, his life might be changed for the better forever. And with that, I would like to give you the angel.
Hello. It's easy for me to sit here and tell you things like, talk to a stranger this week. Wear something you're not used to wearing. Maybe dress pretty or dress stylish. Do something you're not used to doing. Push your limits and find out where your limits really are. You don't know where your don't cross lines are until you've crossed them. And when you cross them and it truly feels wrong to you, you say, okay, that one's a line. I won't cross that again. Most of the limits around you are only limits inside your head. It's like somebody's painted lines on the floor and said, don't ever cross this line. And you're convinced you live in a cage, unable to get out. And you could just step across that line at any point. It's not a cage at all. The vast majority of your limits are little more than lines painted on the floor. And see, it's easy for me to tell you that. Because I'm special, because I've been doing this for a long time. Because I don't have the ties that normal people have to friends and family in this world. But when someone like Gimli sits up here and tells you, I crossed one of those lines, this helps you in a way that I can't. Because 6 months, a year ago, Gimli was a very shy and insecure boy with anger and frustration and fear and anxiety and, bitterness at the world, and he would have grown up into an angry, frustrated, bitter old man. I saw someone walking down the street recently who looked a lot like you, just 40 years older. And he's changed. Not because he kept doing what he was always doing. Gimli, would you hand me the juice there? But because... No, thank you. Einstein once said that we keep doing the same things over and over and expect different results. Gimli is seeing different results as well as so many others because they aren't doing the same things over and over. They're pushing themselves in ways they've never pushed. They're trying things they've never tried. They're stepping into areas that are unfamiliar. And so, Gimli lets you see those results. He lets you with his stories, and more so with his enthusiasm when he talks. He can't help but lean forward and be dramatic. He's changed. And what's important is he hasn't changed into my idea of an ideal person. He hasn't changed into Roja's idea of what's acceptable. He's changed into himself. Who he is down here. Who he is down here is real. There's somebody there. But he learned. When he was a child, his parents wouldn't let him run up and down the stairs because they had neighbors. And so 1 week out of the year, when both neighbors were on vacation, the adjoining walls, they let him run around and make noise. The rest of the time, he had to be quiet and be silent and be proper. It may have been Martin who told me that one of his neighbors took the numbers down, the address on the front of their house, and they put words up instead. So if the address was 128, they took the numbers down and put up the words 128 by their front door. And it was so shocking that it made the local newspaper. Somebody doing so daring and breaking the rules. Nobody was hurt by those numbers being words. Nobody's hurt by Gimli going up and talking to people. And what's actually interesting is people are helped. This boy in the coffee shop was sitting like this, curled up in a corner looking at a book. And he looked like he'd spent all day curled up by himself like this. And he looked like he was going to go home by himself, curled up like this. Maybe read some more and go to bed sad and lonely. And when he left that coffee shop, he was standing up straight, his book under his arm, a bit of a swing in his walk. And he probably went home that night and thought, this is the best day I've had in a long time. This was great. And he probably slept better that night and had less sadness and fear and anxiety because Gimli spent 15 minutes talking to him. And see, the 15 minutes weren't important. The first 15 seconds were, where Gimli got over himself enough and walked up to the fella and, Gimli's not a very polite boy. He walked up and leaned on the chair and said, "Hi, how you doing?" And the kid looked up, "What did I do wrong?" And instead of asking, he just sat down in the chair. You don't really have to have Gimli's obnoxious style. You can use your own style. You can be polite, you can be friendly, you can be loud, you can be cute, you can be strong. But what's relevant is that he talked to a stranger and he changed a life. And next time he sees this boy, he's going to hear this boy say something like, "Oh, it's you, it's so good to see you," and he's going to talk some more. And in time, this boy's life is going to change. For those few minutes that Gimli went up and talked to him, or for those first 15 seconds where he overcame his anxiety and talked to him. And as I was saying, Gimli, he's not my idea of an ideal human being. I don't want everybody in the world to be like Gimli. I want you to be like you. I want you to be like you. I want each of you to find what's in here, in the center, and simply be that. Now, it is my theory, perhaps I should call it stronger than a theory, but my understanding, that society works because none of us are ourselves. Because we all do what we're told. We all follow the rules. We all behave. Society has made us into little pieces of a machine. And we live inside that machine, each being a little cog, a little wheel, doing our job, following the rules when we drive, behaving when we walk down the street so we don't bump into people. We all fit in. And what I'm suggesting, anybody in the current structure will tell you is anarchy. I'm telling each of you needs to be your own self. And they say, oh, that's anarchy. If everybody's himself, then the whole world will fall apart and we'll descend back into chaos and we'll be back living in caves and carrying sticks. But it's my belief, my understanding, my theory, and I feel strongly about it, that if each of us can be ourselves here in the guts and hold that until it grows up to here and makes it to the heart, each of us is ourself, living from our heart. Each of us is ourself, living from here, at the center of ourself. That we're not going to need to follow all the rules. We're not going to need to always dress a certain way or act a certain way or behave a certain way. We can simply be who we are, and we will all do fine. When I was younger, I used to go to goth clubs. I was in a huge goth club in San Francisco, warehouse-sized place, or nearly. And there were over 100 people dancing on the dance floor. And this isn't, if you've ever been to a goth club, this isn't the sort of thing where everybody stands in place and kind of wiggles a little bit. These people, for whatever reason, tend to dance far more flowy. Their arms are moving and their hips are moving and they're moving around the floor. And every so often, somebody in this crowded room would just put their arms out and spin in a big sweeping circle and take up lots of space on the floor. And nobody was telling them what to do. This wasn't the waltz. Nobody was telling them this step and then that step. They weren't following the rules. And yet I watched this for 10, 20 minutes, watching the sea of bodies dancing. And nobody bumped into anybody. Nobody knocked anybody down. Because in this case, they were all moving to the music. And in moving to the music, even though they were packed in, they all moved together. They all moved smoothly. There wasn't bumping into one another or violence or chaos. And there were several cases where I saw someone suddenly leap backwards or put their arms out and spin in a big circle. And every time it happened, I saw the people around them move a little bit and make space just before they did it. And I started watching carefully, so this is strange. Somebody sticks the arms out and spins in a circle, and everybody moves out of the way. And I watched, and the person who was doing this had their eyes closed. And several people around them had their eyes closed, listening to the music. They weren't watching one another and getting out of the way. They were listening to the music. And they would move back when one needed space, and they would move in. And in the time that I watched, an hour perhaps that night that I watched, only once did I see people bumping into each other. A young man came in, and he didn't have the flowy black and the eyeliner and all the goth paraphernalia. He had a shaved head with a little bit of a mohawk and piercings in his face, and his clothes said that he belonged in a place where people are moshing, where they're slamming into each other. And he got out of the dance floor, and he started dancing like this, stomping his big combat boot, boom, boom, and just stomping across the dance floor. And it's a very normal kind of dance in, say, a mosh pit, to stomp around like that and bump into each other. But I watched him start at one side of the dance floor, doing this dancing. He wasn't listening to the music, just his kind of dance, and moving forward. And he bumped several people around him, who bumped people around him, and a little ripple of chaos went through the crowd. And as he went across the floor, this ripple of chaos went around, people being shocked out of their dancing trance. And as he went across the floor, every person he touched, he knocked out of place, out of harmony. And then when he was gone, the people went back to listening to the music. And in listening to the music, they danced without hitting one another. This, to me, is a fundamental truth, a belief, a theory that I hold very strongly, that when your heart comes online, and your heart can't come online until you're truly you. Your guts have to be stable before the heart can be stable. When your heart comes online, you begin to listen to the music of the heart, and you begin to move to it. You begin to be truly you. And so Gimli can be, obnoxious and direct, and Roha can speak a little quieter and approach someone with a gentle smile. And it doesn't matter that their attitudes are different, because they're each acting from the heart, and so they're acting together. And even if they're on different sides of the room, they're acting together, or in different parts of town, they're acting together. Because the heart, your heart, my heart, each person's heart, all of them play a music, and all of those musics are the same. There is a single heart, a universal, that all of the hearts listen to and play in harmony with. And when you're acting in harmony with your hearts, you're acting in harmony with that. And amazing things happen. You want something and somebody shows up to have it. You're talking to someone and you say exactly what they need. You look up at a billboard and you get exactly the answer to a question. You think, should I get a new job? And you look up and there's this giant billboard saying, you need a new job. Oh, all right, thanks. And these kind of things happen. And it's not magic. There isn't a wizard with a big beard and a pointy hat and a little wand saying, all right, you need this now, you can have it. It's like being on the dance floor with all of those goth folks. It's that the world, the universe moves in harmony with this heart. And so when you're moving in harmony with it, you're moving in harmony with the world. What I'm talking about is not anarchy. What I'm talking about is dance. I want you to be you. I want you to be you. Each of us. We don't have an ideal human, a perfect being. We have a sense that each person is an amazing being. And so your goal in this world is to figure out who you are and to be that. That's all. You don't have to be confident, you don't have to be brave, you don't have to be obnoxious, you don't have to be quiet, you don't have to be sensitive. You have to be you. Find who you are and be that. And in doing so, you begin to listen to the music and move to it. And people may at times think you're strange. I ran across a quote years ago that I've carried ever since. It said, those who don't hear the music think the dancers are insane. Now, if you haven't seen them, you should look them up. On YouTube, there are a series of videos. And these people, they're a group. They get together and they all put the same songs or the same messages on the iPod. Then they distribute themselves through a crowd. And they all hit play at exactly the same time. And wherever they are, they all suddenly stand up. Or walking through a supermarket, they all freeze. And if one person did this, you think it's strange. But when suddenly 10 people around you suddenly freeze, you see the other people in the supermarket saying, did something happen? Why am I still moving? Waving their hand in front of their face. When they all jump up and start dancing at the same time, people are looking around. Why are they doing this? The reason is because they all have their little iPods on, their little earphones on. And they're all listening to the same message, so they're all moving in harmony with it. And it's fascinating to watch those who don't know respond to these people. What happened? What's going on? And sometimes you see people who aren't involved look around confused and suddenly, start dancing. Or it's really amazing because they're all listening to the same. And this is what happens when the heart begins to come online. We begin listening to the same music. And there are going to be those angry folks with the mohawk who go stomping through and trying to destroy the harmony. They can't help it. They don't have the music to listen to. And there are going to be times where people say, you're just being weird. Times when you do something unacceptable or obnoxious. I have told some of you, when I was in Hawaii, Hawaii had a lot of tourists. More tourists than locals much of the time. And I was in a shop and there was a woman there who was clearly a tourist, you could tell. Didn't belong. And she was a very pretty girl. And she was very nervous, and she needed someone to talk to her. And something inside said, talk to her. The music said, all right, go talk to her. And I thought about it and said, anything I say to her, she'll think I'm hitting on her and she'll ignore me. This happens a lot. So I thought, well, how do I do it? And the music inside, the feeling was very clear. It said, insult her shoes. And she had really ugly shoes on. And so I walked up to her and said, excuse me, what? You're hitting on me. You know how people who think they're pretty girls can be. And I looked her in the eyes and I said, you know, those are incredibly ugly shoes. And she was offended. And then she started to laugh and she said, yes, they are. She said, I was in a shop and they were so ugly, they were beautiful, and I just had to have them. You want to sit down and talk for a while? And I talked to her for 20 minutes and I changed her life. Gave her what she needed. It's because I listened to the music. Even though what I did to outsiders looked crazy. Never insult a woman's hair. Never insult a woman's shoes. You just don't. But because I listened to the music, I was able to dance through that quite easily. And it was a good experience. Wonderful thing for both of us. What I'm telling you is listen to the music and dance with it. Talk to strangers. Wear clothes you're not used to. Say things that aren't normal. Try new things. And I can say this. I can sit up here and say this because who am I? You know, this guy dressed in white. This guy who does all these crazy things anyway. Who's going to judge him? Or everybody's already judging him, so who cares? But when Gimli sits up here, just being himself, he can tell you, I'm not somebody special. I mean, everybody's special, but I was just an ordinary person. But, you know, I got my guts in line and figured out who I am and got my heart coming online and got a green belt. And I do these things and it feels great. It helps other people, but more so, I love it. When Gimli talks to someone, or, you know, I see him walk down the street and talk to 8 people. Hey, it'll get better. Ah, you're doing good. And people look at him like, what happened? And sometimes they just smile. I was walking down the street behind him, and there was an old couple. And Gimli walked up and tipped his hat to the woman and sauntered on and said something to the next person. And the woman looked at him like, what's wrong with that? This disdain. And her husband, this old man she was with, had this big dopey smile on his face, like he probably hasn't smiled in a long time. He looked at like, oh, I'm so proud of that young man. He's so amazing. And he just smiled at his wife. Crump, crump, crump. And this old man just had this big smile. It just made his day. And Gimli didn't even notice because he didn't talk to him. But just made his day. Why? Because he was dancing to the music. And he's just like you. He's just like anybody else. He's just a person. Anybody can find who they are in their guts, can listen to their heart, and begin to be who they are. Now, when I lived in Phoenix, Mesa actually, Arizona, I lived with a fellow who worked in an insane institution. Big burly guy, and he was a security guard or orderly or something at an institution. And he worked with crazy people all the time. And because of it, he spent a lot of time studying psychology and neurosis and so on. And he gave me a fact at one point that I was unaware of. He said, your average male human, by the time he's 40, has one friend. One. Your average by the time he's 50 has none. When you're in grade school, you talk to all the other little kids because you're surrounded by them. And when you're in high school, people are in these tight little cliques, these little groups. And you talk to people in your group and you try not to get too abused by the other groups. But you're surrounded by people. But once you're out of school and get out into the world, the people you're surrounded with are the people you work with. And generally speaking, you can't have relationships with the people you work with. It ends badly. And generally speaking, maybe 1 or 2 people at work will be people you could be friends with, but you spend much of the time sitting at your desk or behind your cash register or stocking your shelves or driving your cab or whatever you do. And you never really get to know the people. It's not like in grade school where you have recess and you have to spend time with these people and play with them and talk to them. And so you stop meeting new people. And pretty soon the only people you know are people you knew from back in high school and university. And a few years later, the only people you know are your own family if you're married. your husband, your wife, your kids. And that's it. There's nobody outside that circle. What happens is every so often, a friend moves to a new town. You had this experience, most of you, in grade school. A friend moved away, someone you really liked, or you moved away. Every so often, someone dies. Sometimes you have someone who's a good friend or just an acquaintance, and you get in a fight, and you never talk to them again. Most of us have had this happen. You just don't talk to them again. Sometimes a friend kind of drifts away. They change and you change. And, you start wearing a suit and hanging out with executives, and they start having piercings in their face and going to dance clubs, and your worlds become so different that you just don't get along anymore. The result is that the people you know drift out of your life. It's less so with females than with males. Females are a little more social, so they're less likely to end up completely alone. Many women, and almost every single man in society by the time they're 50, if they reach that, are alone. There's nobody in their life. And this didn't happen overnight. It wasn't one day they had 20 friends and then the next day they had none. They moved away, they drifted away, they had a fight, they separated. And this is going to happen. When I was a child, I heard a preacher say, and the Bible said, it came to pass that. It came to pass that. It always says it came to pass. Why does it say that? He said, because nothing comes to stay. Everything comes to pass. And that preacher didn't have a lot to say that was reasonable, but that idea has stuck with me. Everything comes to pass. Everything you have, whether it's your body, your youth, your health, your friends, everything is on loan from the university. It's like checking out a book from a library, if people still use libraries, or renting a video. You have it for a time and then it goes back. Everything in your life is on loan from the universe. Every person you know is eventually going to be sent back and not be part of your life anymore. And so the only way to end up being alone is to continue making friends, to continue talking to strangers. Because a stranger is just a friend or a potential friend that you haven't met yet. The day that you stop talking to strangers is the day you put yourself on the road to being alone. Humans don't do well alone. Just talking to a stranger every day. Hi, how you doing? Maybe you go to the same coffee shop for coffee, or the same restaurant for lunch, or ride the same bus, and see a person every day. All you have to do is nod to them and say hello. The next day you nod to them and say hello. Maybe someday you say, you always ordered that same drink, and today you ordered a different drink. Are you celebrating? Oh, no, I just wanted something different. And you start talking. And in this way, they go from strangers to familiar faces, and familiar faces to acquaintances. And some acquaintances will become friends. Some acquaintances and some friends will become lovers. Some people will become significant parts of our lives. But they don't unless we meet them as strangers. Now, the masters say that we come into life with a plan. Each of us, we come here to learn something, to do something, to experience something. If you really think that you came here just as a random mutation and you're going to die and be gone, you probably don't belong in this group. These ideas are really fundamental to us. We are all here with a purpose. We're all here with a plan. And that plan's a kind of general one. It's sort of like a downhill slope, and you start rolling a marble at the top, and it rolls down the slope. And there are low places which you'll probably get pulled into, an experience you're going to have. And then you go on down, and a high place, an experience you'll probably get pushed away from. And you can force it. You can avoid that experience or require this one. But for the most part, life will pull you into your plan. And see, most of the people who are part of that plan with us, somewhere you're sitting thinking, I'm ready to play at being human again. And you decide to take a human life. And you've got a dozen, 100 friends who all say, yeah, that's great. Let's make it a road trip. Let's do it together. And you can't all be born in the same family. Just, if there are 20 of you, nobody would do that to your mother. 20 kids. And so most of them arrange to meet you later. You know what? Let's meet in college and fall in love. That'll be fun. We can have an intense affair. No, I don't feel like that. Let's meet and be dance partners. Let's meet and have a fight and get started that way. All of these people that you knew before and that you came to this life to share experiences with are going to show up in your life at some point. And almost all of them will be strangers when they show up. And if you live a life like this, with your blinders on, and you don't look at the people around you, you don't talk to the strangers, you don't notice, there's something about that person. I really want to talk to that person. Oh, something's amazing here. I want to do that. Here's an interesting thing. I really want to go study ballroom dance. I really want to learn how to skeet shoot. It doesn't matter what the thing is. When you feel your heart calling you to it, you do it. And in that process, you will have the experiences you came here to have. And you will meet the people you came to share those experiences with. And if you don't do this, if you don't open yourself to new experiences, if you don't open yourself to new people, if you don't talk to strangers, then you're going to miss out on the amazing things. So, Gimli reminds us how important that is. Now, I want to talk about something different here. What?
I am proud.
Having a healthy appreciation for yourself is a wonderful thing. You should be able to look in the mirror and say, I like you. If I have to go through life with anybody, it should be you. And if you can't look in the mirror and say that, if you look in the mirror and think, God, I have to put up with you again today, your life's going to be difficult. How can anybody else like you or appreciate you if you don't? When you look in the mirror and say, God, I love me, I'm great, I'm ready to see what today brings, then you bring that attitude to everything, and everyone's life is brightened. So, when you're young in this process, we teach you some exercises. And the exercises we teach you are not white belt exercises, though we teach them to you at white belt level. We teach you things that when you're a black belt you will still be doing. Imagine you go to study a martial art, and they teach you, all right, this is your first block. You do this, raw. Right? So somebody's reaching for your face, raw. And they make you practice it over and over, block. Then later you learn an outside block or an upward block. You learn the open hand blocks, the traps, and all of these pieces. But this basic block, this first thing you learned, is still going to be important. You could, 40 years from now, be a master fighting in some world champion conflict, competition. And somebody reaches for your face, you still use this. You still use a block. The most basic techniques we improve on, but we use them forever. And this is true in this process as well. The basic techniques we teach you aren't things you learn and then stop doing. They're things you learn forever. And there are two of those that really stand out. The first one, perhaps the most important, is ground center breathe. I talk to black belts and I say, all right, ground. Get in your guts, breathe. Now, and it doesn't matter that they're black belts. They're still using these techniques. The same way a martial artist will still be using the same stance he or she learned as a white belt. Those basic techniques matter. And folks have talked to you about GCB and how important it is. So I'm not going to. I'm going to talk to you about the second one in this suite. Now, most of you have no idea where sweet came from. You think it was written in a holy book somewhere or God handed it down to us, but sweet comes from working with thousands and thousands of people. And when I found that they were having trouble, I tried different things to get them to pay attention, to learn, to feel, to breathe, to practice, to help them get through their chaos and get back to stable. And the technique I learned and used in Hawaii, the first step was sit down. And whatever you're doing, stop. Sit down and focus. All right, when you're sitting, good, that's a start. Now, hear all that chatter in your head. Oh, I got to do this, I got to take care of that. I'm so worried about this. Oh, I hate myself, I can't do that. All that chatter, stop listening to it. Pay attention to who you are and stop talking to all the noise. It may still be shouting, but stop talking. And creatively, I called that phase, shut up. And the third was, all right, get into the center of you and pay attention to what's there. Are you nervous? Are you scared? Are you happy to be here? Are you enthusiastic, insecure, anxious, frustrated? And I called that step, pay attention. And so for years, I ran people through a process I called sit down, shut up, and pay attention. And it worked. It helped. When we started the ELF path, though, we had a different idea. We want to take this process, which the Taoists called the most difficult road you can ever walk, the road that leads back to yourself. And we wanted to make it an easy and fun and simple, light-hearted process that even children could follow and play with and enjoy. And this was a whole new idea. How do you take the most difficult path you can ever follow and make it something easy and fun that even children can do? And I started by taking my most fundamental exercises like GCB and changing them to more light-hearted but just as effective approaches. And so sit down, shut up, and pay attention became sweet. I looked at a way to get people to do this. And the way that I found was, all right, sit down, take all of your set it aside and focus, just focus in your guts. Now when you've got that, just let the energy, the sense of self, who you are, let it grow kind of warm and gently expand. Let it gently move outward. And what you get is the soft, warm, expanding energy technique. Even the name is one I made up because it implies a gentle, a kind, a sweet approach rather than an aggressive approach. Sit down, shut up, and pay attention. Works. But it's not really easy and light and fun. And so, sweet came around. Now, when you start this path as a white belt, you're taught sweet. And you supposedly get up every morning and do sweet for just a few minutes. Just be in your center and let something warm and wonderful expand. That's all. Easy to do, feels great, not a problem. And then most of you, by the time you're yellow belts, have quit doing it. All right, well, I know it's sweet stuff. Now it's time for something better. But these two techniques, GCB and sweet, are ones that you will still be doing someday when, if you ever become a master. Child, student, teacher, master, it doesn't matter what stage you're on. You'll be using the same techniques. Sweet is so fundamental. Right this moment, if I have a blue belt who's nervous or crazy, sweet is one of the best things they can do. Ground center, breathe. Sure, get yourself centered. But once you're there, find who you are at the center of you. Ka tone, the true self, or as close as you can get. And feel that and be that. And let it gently expand. And when you get further along, there are more advanced versions of sweet that you'll come across. Some of you have already. But the idea of sweet is still there. And I don't care if you're a brown belt. You should still be waking up in the morning and doing sweet for a few minutes. It's just a gentle way to let the energy expand and tension and chaos from your dreams and whatever's been going on there melt away. Just do sweet for a few moments. And I'd like to talk to you about a couple that I've only just been working with. And some of you this will be beyond you, and some of you this will be easy. I showed Gimli this last night. And so if you have questions about it, go to him. Find him on Skype, call him on the phone, tackle him and say, tell me, right, whatever. But go to him with your questions. What I want you to do right now is to do sweet. To put yourself in your guts and let that soft, warm energy expand. Let who you are expand in a gentle, warm way. Just let it expand into your guts. Soften a bit and the tension melts a bit. And now, I want you to focus on your emotions. What are you feeling? Are you sad? Are you excited? Are you curious? Are you hungry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Are you horny? What are you feeling? And then I want you to go back to sweet, that soft, warm, expanding of energy. And I want you to go back to your emotions. All right, what are you feeling? And I want you to notice there's a difference. I tested this on Gimli because he's a green belt, which means he's not, this is not black belt level stuff. He could sense the difference. And that is when you're doing sweet, it's like a steam or a warm liquid. And when you get to the emotions, they're thicker and denser, like a syrup or even structures. They're different. Sweet works with a very subtle energy, and the emotions are a denser energy. And so what I want you to recognize is this possibility that you can find the emotions and do sweet at an emotional level. This is something new and different, and I don't expect many of you to be able to understand it, but I want you to at least look at it. Because in this process, there's a couple of secrets that are very powerful. I have a feeling that many of us who are good with the meta, maybe orange belt or green belt, we're still having trouble with the emotions. The emotions are chaotic, we're nervous, we don't like ourselves, we're tense, we're afraid. And doing a kind of sweet with the emotional energies. You actually have to find the emotions and tune to them, and then while you've got hold of those emotions, do sweet from there. Let those emotions get soft and warm. And when they start to be comfortable, let them gently expand through your entire emotional body, which is bigger than your physical body. Emotional level sweet. Why does this work? How does it happen? Well, you have got a physical body, and you've got an emotional body, right? An aura. Your aura exists out here, right? People who can see auras, the energies around somebody, that's what they talk about, yeah? Cats, behave. Yeah. If your aura, your emotional body is out here around you, why do we tell people to look in their guts for your emotions? We tell you because your emotions are in your guts. This is the center of your emotional body. Well, how can that be? This is where your physical body is, and your emotional body is around that. Obviously, it's not so. Your emotions are here. So part of your emotional body is here. How can your emotional body and your physical body be in the same place at the same time? How can you have two things at the same place at the same time? If one's there, the other pushes it out of the way. How does this happen? Different frequencies. It's a bit like turning on a radio, and you turn it to 98.6 FM, or whatever the European equivalent of that is, I don't know. Or you can turn it to 94.2 FM, or 500 and something AM. You haven't moved your radio to different places. All of those radio frequencies are there in the same place. And if they're all at the same frequency, they'd all be interfering with one another. You tune to one station and you hear 6 people talking at the same time. In fact, all of those radio stations are there in the same place, at the same time, just at different frequencies, and you can tune to any of them. And our bodies work like this. You have a physical body that's here. You have an emotional body that's also here, though a little bigger. It's just at a different frequency. You have a mental body that's here, but at a different frequency. And you have this subtle energy that's here at the same place, bigger. Your aura, but it goes all the way to the center, at the same place, just a different frequency. And sweet, as we do it, works with the subtle body, these subtle energies, but it doesn't necessarily work with the emotions. And so I want you to practice an emotional level sweet. Get into your emotions and feel them, whatever they are. And then put something warm and wonderful there. Just let it expand throughout. I'd like you all to practice this. This is the kind of thing that maybe you can sense the first day, but you won't see results unless you do this for 2 or 3 minutes a day. It'll probably take you almost 30 days. But what you're going to find is doing this emotional level suite 2 minutes a day for 30 days will make a lot of your emotional stuff just start to melt away. If you look at the emotions as little blocks in your energy system, places where the emotions are frozen or hard, you can find that little block, break it down and get rid of it and ground it and so on. Then you find another, break it down and get rid of it and so on. Imagine that, I have a big drain pipe somewhere and I'm trying to get water to flow through it, or a big water pipe. I could actually crawl inside that pipe and say, there's a little block right here. Let me scrape that off. There's another one. Scrape it off. And I could spend years cleaning out the inside of that pipe. I can tell you from experience, this is not how your city does it. Most cities, what they do is they pop something like a fire hydrant and let lots and lots of water rush through there and clear out the pipes, and then they close it back up and the pipes work better. And the water in your house may look brown for a day or so because they've stirred all this stuff up. But what they're doing is clearing out the pipes. Not by somebody crawling through and fixing each thing, but by this general process that does the whole thing. And this is what Emotional Suite can do for you. Emotional Suite can find each of these little emotional blocks, and instead of dealing with them one at a time, can start to melt them all away at the same time. And so if you've been having chaos, if you're stuck, this is a new method that will help. Now that is only a stepping stone to what I really want to tell you about. That is, you wear a physical body. You can touch it. You can scratch it. You can make it stand on its head. It's, a dense, meaty thing, your carnal form. And as long as you're part of the human world, you're probably going to wear a physical body. Maybe in your dreams you can get out for a few minutes, but most of your time you're right here in the meat suit, the physical body. And the physical body has health problems. It has weak knees, or pain in the wrists, or arthritis, or headaches, or migraines, or ulcers. It has all kinds of physical problems. I found years ago a book that said you can cure your eyesight if you wear glasses by doing these eye exercises for 20 minutes a day every day. Now, wow, that's really cool not to have to wear glasses. 20 minutes a day, that's fine. And I found another one that says you can lower your blood pressure by doing this 15 minutes a day. And another one said that, you can help your digestion be better by doing this 30 minutes a day. And I started adding these up, and I would have to spend 8 to 12 hours a day just doing all the exercises to keep, each of the pieces healthy. And I thought, that's crazy. That doesn't make sense. 8 or 10 hours a day just doing the exercises to make the physical body work. 8 hours a day sleeping, a few hours eating and showering. I don't have any time left. There's got to be a better way. And what I want to suggest to you is that a physical suite, a physical body suite, is that way. That in the same way you do suite, you can feel your physical body, feel your muscles and your tendons and your guts, and hear your heart beating. And you can, with practice, this is going to take trouble for most of you. It's going to take a lot of time. But you can begin to feel the physical body in the guts and expand that same soft, warm energy through the physical form. And what you're going to find is a lot of your health problems will melt away. And one of the things that I want you to be aware of as a goal is that this is the thing that will heal cancer. I don't want to say cure cancer, because cancer is, if we see it as an enemy to be fought and conquered, it's only going to get worse. Cancer is inherently one part of the body fighting against another part of the body. Ultimately, there's a bacteria that causes it, but science hasn't discovered that yet. For now, until science gets to a place where it does, if you have cancer or know someone who does, this is a thing that will fix it. Cancer is two parts of you at war with each other. And so creating further tension, fighting, chemotherapy, or some destructive violent technique is only going to cause it to get worse in the long run. But if you can do this physical level sweet, where you take this soft, warm, expanding energy and run it through your physical body, your physical system. And I'm going to tell you right now that the physical body is much denser. It's a much lower frequency. And so you can't do this like sweet, where you just find the energy, ooh, that's nice. You have to move much slower. It's like getting mud to flow. Like herding a herd of cats. All little pieces going in different direction. It's a little more work, a little more focus. But I encourage those of you who are curious, not everybody because this is tough, but those of you who are curious, to begin to practice. And it may take you 10, 20 minutes the first time to really feel the physical energy, the physical body, and make the physical body feel warm and gently expanding. But if you can do this every day for a little while, you can get this to start to be comfortable and easier. And you get to the place where every day when you wake up for 2 minutes, you can do sweet, and then do emotional sweet, then do physical sweet, 3 levels. Doesn't take you long. You can do it while you're in the shower. You know, something you do every day. It doesn't have to take long. When you're good at it, you may find yourself driving in your car or standing in line waiting to purchase something or to get into somewhere, and just have 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Think, oh, this is a great chance to do physical sweet. And if you can get to doing this regularly, to the point where you can get this soft, warm, physical energy expanding through your system, a lot of your health problems will go away. And the most extreme one, and I toss it out there just because it is extreme and it scares many people, is cancer. That this soft, warm, expanding energy technique will heal cancer. And if this technique can catch on and begin to be taught to more and more people, cancer will become a thing of the past. So, sometimes I talk about big sweeping world changes, and sometimes I talk about the meta, and sometimes the emotional. Right now I'm talking about the physical. All of you who have the cojones, the guts, to try something new and a little intimidating and maybe even impossible seeming, try this. Play with this. Play with the emotional sweet, definitely. And if you have, the nerve or the curiosity, play with the physical sweets. And see what it does. If you know someone who has cancer, cancer is a horrible, painful disease. Maybe someone you care about, a relative, talk to them about this. I think this is being recorded. Maybe show them the video. And tell them a little about what sweet is and how it works. You don't have to be very experienced in the meta or a black belt in elf path. Somebody who's not an elf path at all can learn to do a physical level sweet. So, if you know someone who needs it, teach it to them. In teaching, you'll learn it yourself. And if you're willing, practice it. That's all I've got to say to you. Have fun. Play well together. I'll give this to Gimli and let him dance and prance for a moment.
Hey, do that dancing thing! Everybody! Na 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 na. Hey! I'm talking to you! And you, you too, everybody! Na 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 na. Indeed. Catherine says it's a good excuse to be a good influence on everybody. Hey, do that dancing thing. Good night, everybody.